Today's episode is sponsored by P3R because they are gearing up for the marathon. The Dick's Sporting Goods Pittsburgh Marathon weekend of events all goes down May 2nd and 3rd. There's the big race and also a half you can run or walk it, the 5K, kids events, and more. So whether you're a first-timer hoping to push yourself to new limits or a grizzled ultra marathoner with tons of experience, there is space for yins. Use code CityCast15 to save 15% off any registration. That's thepittsburghmarathon.com. Use code CityCast15 for 15% off any event.
Today's episode is supported by AIDS-Free Pittsburgh. There are more than 5,000 people living with HIV in southwestern Pennsylvania, and the Ryan White HIV/AIDS program provides support services to help them get the care they need. That includes assistance with things like healthcare, medications, housing, transportation, food, and treatment for substance use disorders. Visit aidsfreepittsburgh.org to learn more.
This is CityCast Pittsburgh. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about.
So you will not authorize ICE in the city of Pittsburgh?
No, we stand by it. We will not do that. And our acting chief is on the same page with us. And again, we said it throughout the campaign. We said it, in office. We are not going to have that partnership in Pittsburgh.
That was our new mayor, Corey O'Connor, this past weekend, talking to WTAE about whether Pittsburgh is going to work with ICE. Today, I'm with a friend of the podcast and University of Pittsburgh law professor David Harris to talk about what's been happening in our city, what officials can do legally if ICE is around, and just how this federal presence here is affecting one of the city's biggest inflection points in years. And also how a new police chief is likely to approach challenges like recruitment, retention, morale, and rebuilding public trust in ICE's wake. David, hello. Welcome back to CityCast.
Always good to be with you, Megan.
So let's start with this moment in Pittsburgh leadership. Everything has been changing over. Council agreed just yesterday to interview the new public safety director and the acting chief. You have been following Pittsburgh police for a very long time. I hope I'm not blowing up your spot too much, but maybe longer actually than Jason Landau has even been a police officer here in Pittsburgh. Remind us a teeny bit about the acting chief's background.
Sure. Chief Landau was a member of the Pittsburgh Police Department for 20 plus years, I believe, rising steadily through the ranks here, success after success, job after job, until he retired and left to become the chief of police in Frederick, Maryland. Chief Landau has exposure to almost every responsible high-level position in the department. He's been chief of major crimes. And the thing that really mattered to me as I viewed his career and ascent and wrote a little bit about him in my most recent book, A City Divided, was his work as the commander of Zone 5. Zone 5 includes some of the areas of the city that see the highest rates of violent crime and some of the greatest disconnect between police and community. As commander of Zone 5, he improved community relations significantly. We were hearing that from people on the ground, not just from, a few folks, but from the activist community, the regular folks. I myself watched him engage with youth in a program that he conceived and directed. He's just really good. And top of his mind in every position he was in was always that police community partnership. Police can't do it alone. Community can't do it alone. They need to be partners, real trusted partners. And he went for that. He was all in on that. I expect the same thing from him as chief. Now that he has been a chief for about 5 years down in Frederick, the city of Pittsburgh would be getting somebody who's already road tested in the big position. And I don't care how many staff positions you've had, how many commands you have had, until you're in the big chair, it's just different. And so we have that advantage as well.
Yeah. So he's had a little bit of the experience. Plus, he just like knows us. He knows how things work around here. Let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what's going on right now with the police bureau that Lando is almost definitely going to have to deal with sooner than later? Council still has to officially confirm him, but it does seem very likely to happen.
Yeah, I agree. It does seem likely. As a Pittsburgh native, he grew up here. He was from Squirrel Hill. He knows the city inside and out, aside from being a police officer here. His biggest challenge, I think, right away is that the Bureau of Police has had no permanent leadership since Larry Scarato left under a cloud, one could say, to referee college basketball games. That means that, in those few years, there were 5 chiefs or acting chiefs. And that's not a good situation. The members of the Bureau all want to know who's leading them, what's the mission as that person sees it, what's that person going to be looking for, is there going to be reorganization? Really, they want a steady hand who they know will both have their backs and give them a clear idea of what the department is about now.
I think all of us can identify with that to some extent, right? Like,
oh, yeah, sure.
No matter what kind of job you have, if you have 5 different bosses over the space of a couple of years, it's going to be weird.
Yes. I mean, I can relate to this very well myself. Just in the last couple of years, we had several interim deans after a permanent dean and now a permanent dean at the School of Law. And, we're not nearly as big an organization with that kind of responsibility. And, you can feel it when there's nobody at the rudder. And so this will be a good thing for leadership to be established, for somebody to stand up and say, okay, here we go. This is the direction we're heading.
So he's got to get the buy-in. He also has a staffing shortage to deal with. And there has been so much discussion over the last few years about how many officers Pittsburgh really needs. And we've had study after study about it. They all say we don't have enough at present, which I think is still hovering somewhere around 700, but you may know better than I.
Yeah, that's true. It's in the 700s. The last I checked, we're authorized for something north of 900, I think. Doesn't mean we need 900 right now. There was that staffing study that you referred to, came out just about the time that Larry Scarato took over as chief, said we didn't need quite 900. We could deploy in different ways. And the first thing he did upon taking the job was to reject the results of that. I'm not saying that the new chief should accept it. The new chief will undoubtedly want to look it over, has probably already done so, but there needs to be some staffing up. I don't think anybody would argue with that.
That's the thing. We're talking about the difference between 700 and 900. Like, there's a wide middle ground there, I feel like.
Oh, yes.
Also, just challenges right now with hiring police officers, like just generally. I don't know that anybody ever thought it was a cake job, but it's also just a contentious job to take these days, too.
Oh, yes, absolutely. This is not something where people just want to do it because it's the next easy thing. Not at all. It's not an easy job under the best circumstances.
And there's been so many retirements, too. Like, retention is another thing because you can retire in the Bureau after, is it 18 or 20 years?
I believe it's 20.
Okay.
I believe it's 20. And that's a real issue. The other retention issue, of course, is that in this county alone, we have over 100 other police departments, many of whom pay better than the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. And we end up as the training feeder. We train them up, we give them some real experience, and then they move to an easier job in a suburban area. That's just not what we want. We must put ourselves in a position through what we do for officers, whether it's pay or support or officer wellness, benefits, whatever it is, that we can retain the officers we really want. And this isn't just a problem in Pittsburgh, by the way. This is a national problem, recruiting for police officer jobs. And some of it is what you referenced. It's not an easy job, and it's become less easy over the last few years. But as the retirements hit and as retention is a problem, it gets harder for the officers who are still there. Then, of course, we have the feds. ICE in particular out there offering $50K bonuses to sign up for a job with ICE. So this isn't an easy market, but that's clearly something that the next chief is going to have to face up to and take some actions on.
Well, how do you think ICE is going to play into some of these challenges? I mean, there's just the recruiting piece alone. If you're interested in wearing a badge, so to speak, like you got to be a different kind of human if you're willing to be an ICE officer right now. But how is their presence in our city and in cities nationwide going to affect the challenges that Lando is very likely walking into?
Oh, it's such a bundle of good questions there. I almost don't
Sorry, I'll work on narrowing those down.
No. Let's just take them one by one. Number one, ICE has police powers, but ICE is not a traditional police department in any sense. A real police department, whether you're for a town, a mid-sized city like Pittsburgh, a large city like New York or Chicago, you have a community you serve. You have as your mission to protect and serve all. I'm not saying we always meet that goal, but that's our aspiration. As ICE, you're not connected to any community. All you're connected to is a mission, and we can argue about the mission. We'll come to that in a moment, but that makes for an entirely different mindset of the officers who are involved. They don't have to think about coming back to this community. They're going to be moved somewhere else. They're going to be next weekend, pick the city. They're going to have different people giving out orders, people who are not connected to the place that they're in. And that by itself is not a kind of traditional way that police succeed. When we view success for police, and I know Chief Lando believes in this, we view connection with the community as right at the top of the list because we know we have to be partners in order to have real public safety for all. ICE just doesn't have that. And because of that, that's why we can see them acting the way that they are in these numerous videos. Of course, we're all thinking right now of the video in which there was a shooting of a person who, my opinion, after having viewed the videos, did not pose a threat. But it's more than that. It's the way they talk to people. It's using these less than lethal weapons on people as almost a joke, as a lark, shooting pepper balls at people who are simply exercising their First Amendment rights. I mean, we can see that attitude across their entire mode of conduct.
I was just listening to an interview with the Minnesota Police Department, the chief of police, and they were talking about how they're ripping people out of cars and not even putting the cars in park. They're creating problems in addition to just being horrific human beings.
Yeah, well, one wonders about their training, policy, and practice, because clearly those things do not line up with the best ways that we train, and the policy we set for local police officers. And this is creating more problems than it solves. They basically haven't been anywhere yet where they don't leave a colossal mess behind. And that makes problems for the police from that jurisdiction. And if the city gets itself hooked up with ICE, and we just heard that clip from our new mayor, Corey O'Connor, who said he's not doing that, but in some places they have. When you hook your police up to ICE, that means that your community is just going to assume that you have the same mission and doing the same things, and any level of public trust then dissolves in not just ICE, but your local police. That is long-term damage, because then the communication that police need on the ground to do a successful job is cut off with the people who live there. And predators and crime can flourish long after ICE has, moved on somewhere else.
A lot of this isn't theoretical too. We know that ICE has been operating in the Pittsburgh area. We've heard that they've been snatching people up at the courthouse and more. There was a video that circulated not long ago of an interaction in Mount Washington where Pittsburgh police are clearly there. I got to be honest, though, David, I don't know the legal distinction between being present to, quote unquote, protect the peace in a moment that could get worse fast versus cooperating with an ICE official. I'm sure there's a legal difference, but for those of us that are just seeing this video, what are we seeing?
Absolutely. The if a jurisdiction, be it a sheriff's office, a police department, decides it is going to cooperate with ICE, they
Which
may
we've seen
actually,
around the region, just not in
yes,
Pittsburgh.
other places. They may actually formalize that relationship through an agreement under a federal law called 287G, and it effectively deputizes some or all members of the local police unit into being ICE agents or ICE adjuncts. Um, the difference between a local police department that might show up and be present versus one that is aiding ICE, helping ICE, cooperating with ICE, I think that's the term that's usually used, is that there would be active passing of information back and forth between the local police and ICE, that there would be active assistance in things like arrests, standing by and making sure that there is no danger to anybody is a different thing. It's going to look the same.
It doesn't look good. Like, even if I take the highest possible road
Uh-huh.
and try to consider what I know, that officers have to go where they're dispatched. Like, that is part of the hierarchy, the chain of command. If they tell you to go, you go. But if I'm watching that video, it looks like there's a police officer aiding and abetting ICE.
Yes, and that's the real danger. I mean, even if you have an official city and department policy, we're not cooperating with ICE. If the people on the ground, the folks who live in the jurisdiction, see the police department present, they're simply going to assume, oh, these people are part of the operation too. People may not distinguish it. And that's a huge dent in a big loss of that trust that local police have to work very hard to create and sustain and constantly replenish, because they need the public's trust when the chips are down. And if you lose that by looking like you're affiliated with ICE, that you're participating in the things they do, that's just a net loss. I mean, there's just nothing good about that.
I want to believe that the police department that is protecting my town believes similarly to our mayor, to so many of us. You know, there have been a lot of protests in recent days that they don't want anything to do with these officers. I'm sure there are some exceptions. I'm sure there are officers that believe differently. Are they subject to this same mandate? When Corey O'Connor stands up there and says, "We will not work with ICE," say they're on their off hours, can those police officers do what they want to?
On their off hours, they could do anything that a regular citizen could do. They could join a demonstration, pro or con, but they're not entitled to work a second job as an ICE officer or something like
They
that.
couldn't double dip, I guess, in that sense.
No.
Okay. What about on the flip side? You know, I heard one officer say that they're worried that there could be some horrible showdown, that if they were dispatched and they refused to participate, could they, the officer, then be arrested or indicted for interfering in a federal law enforcement operation or investigation? What's at stake for the officers that hate this but still feel like they are required to do some portion of their job? It's the dividing line is so slim.
Yeah, it is. And you got to feel for officers who are put in that very unfortunate position. As long as they are there just doing the job of peacekeeping, and I think that, keeping people safe, keeping people separated, perhaps, that might be it. I think that they are not likely to encounter themselves being threatened or arrested or something like that. We see a counterexample, actually, not in terms of a police officer, but in terms of a judge. Up in Wisconsin, there was a judge who helped some folks who were appearing in her court. My understanding of this, and I'm just working from memory here, is that the judge assisted some people ICE was very interested in getting out of the courthouse without encountering the ICE agents who were kind of waiting for them. And she's been actually charged, and I think maybe soon on trial, if not now, up in Wisconsin. So if you actively participate in hindering ICE, you could have trouble.
Would that be true of regular citizens too? Like I'm thinking of all the advocate spaces, for example, like folks that maybe escort to things like perfectly legal immigration hearings, things like that, or a family member, maybe the victim of a crime who was supposed to testify and now doesn't want to come anywhere near a courthouse. Like, are there ways for them to help these people safely without putting themselves and people in jeopardy at the same time?
As a citizen helping a neighbor, you would have to be very careful not to interfere with ICE.
Oh my,
because
like that's so bleak, David. Like,
of course it is. Of course it is. And that's the moment we're in. One of the people who has taught me a lot in my life here in Pittsburgh, no longer living here, used to say, and I don't think this was original to him, neighbor is a moral concept. The word neighbor. It's not just somebody who lives next to you. It's somebody you feel morally connected to and responsible for. And we're all connected in that way. So there are many people who want to help. But boy, you have to be careful because these folks who are doing the federal enforcement, we can see in many ways. They are not very selective about who and how they carry out their mission, who they might use force against, who they might even arrest. It's not a good moment in that respect.
Well, I hope anyone listening who maybe is in a position to help, y'all keep fighting the good fight. I don't want anyone to get arrested ever, but also like, ugh.
Yes. I don't think there's any danger of Pittsburgh police arresting people for this. What we have seen in city after city is that any danger, if you want to call it that, comes from the federal enforcement side.
Today's episode is supported by PA Preferred, who makes it easy to choose local and support the farmers who grow and make the food and products we rely on every day. It's PA's official brand for local, and they say the variety is incredible. Pennsylvania isn't just dairy and sweet corn, we're the #1 mushroom producing state in the country. We've got apples, hops, honey, maple syrup, flowers, and even fibers from alpacas and sheep. Plus jams, preserves, hardwood products, craft beverages, dog treats, ice cream. If you love it, chances are a Pennsylvania farmer or maker is behind it. If you want to find PA Preferred products near you, start at papreferred.com. You can search for farms, farmers markets, and local producers in your neighborhood. And with the 2026 Pennsylvania Farm Show happening right now, it's the perfect time to explore everything our ag community has to offer. This year's theme, Growing a Nation, celebrates how Pennsylvania agriculture has shaped America. And you can see it all at the Farm Show in Harrisburg. 6,000 animals, the iconic food court, demos from top PA chefs at the Culinary Connection, and of course, the butter sculpture. Choose local, choose PA Preferred. Visit papreferred.com, that's papreferred.com. Paid for with Pennsylvania tax dollars.
Today's episode is supported by Special Olympics Pennsylvania. They're hosting the Pittsburgh Polar Plunge on February 28th at Acrisure Stadium. Y'all, these people are so committed to our neighbors with intellectual and developmental disabilities that they are jumping into freezing cold pools right there on the windy riverbank. I have seen this one in person, and people line up in droves. School teams, first responders, teachers, business folks. People come in costume. I remember once some kids dressed up as hot dogs before they jumped in. And they'll have food and music. Maybe you can dance with those hot dogs and more. All proceeds from the Polar Plunge go right back to Special Olympics Pennsylvania, which provides sports training and programming to talented athletes of all ages, kids and adults. Last year's plunge raised more than $1 million, and Special Olympics Pennsylvania wants to break that record here in 2026. So if you want to be freezing for a reason, plunge with a purpose, and visit yinsplunge.com to register today. So let's talk about some of those other challenges you talked about. What does a police staffing shortage specifically mean in practice for residents? Like, what happens on our end when there aren't enough officers to do things?
Yes, we might notice slower response times if we call somebody. We might notice that in certain kinds of calls we might make to the police, they might say, well, we don't send anybody out for that kind of thing, or even a shift towards civilians taking reports. Um, we might see fewer units on the ground. There might be more difficulty getting officers to do the kind of overtime work that they sometimes do for private events, a parade, things like that. That's been a long tradition in Pittsburgh.
Although, I mean, even to that effect, like people are always billed for that. Like when I had my wedding, because we had alcohol on a city property, we were required to have an officer on site. We paid a fee for that. There's reporting last year that like the city just wasn't collecting that money for a very long time. Like that feels like a thing that could get cleaned up.
Yes, yes, and I predict it will get some attention. It's just one of those things that's easy to neglect when you're facing all kinds of other crises. So I think for citizens, the difference is going to be. In those cases where they need to or think they want to talk to an officer, it may be more difficult than it has been in the past. What we hope is that there is still enough power in the numbers that they have, that for any major crime, we get the right number of officers on the case and working on it. That's the absolute bottom line that you have to have.
Are there kinds of crimes or calls that like most strain a short-staffed department?
Um, I think one of the things that has had a lot of attention, and rightly so, over the last 6, 7, 5 years is calls from people and in situations in which a police car, a badge, a gun, that a trained officer are not really what is necessarily needed. What you need more are folks doing the works of medics and social workers, because many of these repeat calls, it's a person who doesn't have a home, who is seeming to offend people, or is sleeping in a place they shouldn't be, or is, stealing Hostess cupcakes from the 7-Eleven because they have nothing to eat. Or somebody who has a drug overdose, a substance abuse disorder problem that is publicly visible. Those kinds of calls can be handled without the involvement of police through crisis response teams. And this is something that the city has had, at least since the Peduto administration, when that effort was started. My understanding now is that it still goes on, though there is going to be some reorganization of that within the city. I know the county has quite a robust program that they are building up to do the same thing. The more that we can do of that, the better, because number one, people get the service they actually need. Number two, we can keep them from cycling through the criminal justice system. Number three, we don't need police to do those kinds of things. Once there is an assurance that nobody's in danger, we can move it to the people who actually have the skills, have the time, instead of taking up valuable police resources. And so that's something I think that everybody can agree on, and I'd like to see the city build up its efforts, even as it studies them and looks for how to do it going forward.
I saw that violent crime seems to be down by most metrics over the last couple of years, particularly homicide. And I know that's true nationwide. What do you make of folks, including Corey O'Connor this month, acknowledging that people still don't, quote unquote, feel safe in Pittsburgh? Like, I guess I'm wondering, should feelings matter in this moment, or should we be more focused on the data?
Yeah. Well, as an academic, I can't help but be focused on the data. And as somebody who has studied this and watched the steady downward trend in crimes of violence, especially over the last 30 years, I'm very glad, and as a citizen too, to see the long-term downward trend in all of this in cities of all sizes all over the country. People sometimes don't feel a connection to what's actually happening because the diet of information that they're getting is telling them something else. Is telling them that they are in danger when they walk out. Is And this isn't a new thing. You've worked in the media yourself, Megan. You know the old saw, if it bleeds, it leads.
I hate it. I hate
Um,
that. But yes, I have
yeah,
heard it.
yeah, you've heard it. And you probably also know, if you look at, say, television, local television news, that's still the greatest source of news for the greatest number of people. You look at, you could legitimately think as a viewer, wow, crime really spikes every November and May. It just goes up. It's incredible.
Those are sweeps weeks.
That's right. It's when the ratings are calculated for ad rates. And so there has to be, I think, a greater sense of responsibility, perhaps, for some of that. But let's face it, there are organizations, media and otherwise, political and otherwise, who use the fear of crime to motivate people in their direction, to appeal, to get votes, to get donations. And so we have a sort of counter narrative, have had it for a while going in this country. Things are just, it's getting more and more dangerous. And people are being sold a bill of goods, thus their feelings. So you can't ignore their feelings to answer your first question. Feelings count, but you got to, as a leader, get out there and say, no, this is how it actually is. And these are the places where it's still bad. And here's what we're doing in that place. And things are getting better. Or, we're going to try something else, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, how much control do you think a police chief or a mayor, for that respect, how much control do they have over crime trends?
They have some. Clearly, it used to be thought that, trends in crime were basically impervious to municipal policy, police actions, things like that. But our experience over the last 30 years tells us that while police and city governments can't control the up and down, they can influence it. And different ways of policing, different methods, different kinds of deployments do have an impact on it. And there's just no disputing that anymore. So you look for what the evidence tells you is the best way to tackle a problem. And that can be, let's say you have one of these bars that's a big problem on this block. Well, you start with zoning, you start with city code enforcement. I mean, you use every lever, and that bar is going to be gone or it's going to start behaving. And you don't just tell the citizens, well, we'll put some more officers, more patrol cars out. We think it's going to get better. You actually do things. We have seen over the last 5 to 10 years that funding of anti-violence groups within the community-based anti-violence response teams, so-called violence interrupters, that these have an impact on the rate of crime too. For every 10 of these groups, I think this was Patrick Sharkey's work. He's at Princeton. For every 10 groups so funded in a city, you'll have a drop of crime roughly of 6%. All these things matter, but police and the municipal government do have a role. It's not the only role, but it's an important one.
That 6% feels kind of huge, but there isn't a lot of money floating around here in Pittsburgh right now for new things. On this show, we've talked about the budget so much. There are going to be constraints. Do you imagine we're going to have the money for things like that in the next 2 to 4 years?
It's a strapped time. There's no doubt about that. Whatever COVID funds used to be around, those are kind of gone. But shame on us if we don't prioritize the public safety of our children, our youth, everybody who lives in some of the areas that experience more of this kind of violence than others, because that all has a cost too. It may be a less direct cost, but if we don't invest in ourselves, in our communities, and in safety for all, we're just letting ourselves in for bad times ahead. So I'm not the accountant. I'm not the controller. That must be obvious, but I sure hope there's money for some of that.
Yeah. Well, Lando could be confirmed, I guess, as soon as this month. He's got to go through a vetting process that no former police chief in Pittsburgh ever has, though he seems ready for it. There was, of course, a sticky situation at the end of his tenure in Maryland that's made some headlines. It doesn't seem likely to derail any of this. So I guess as we look forward for Lando and for Pittsburgh, what do you think a successful chief situation will look like? I mean, first and foremost, it seems like just being here longer than a year and a half will be a huge win. But beyond that, like in year 1, year 2, maybe year 5, imagining a reality where we have a chief for longer than a few years, what is a good job? What does that look like for a police chief?
Yeah, it's really the question. And like you, I think he's going to be confirmed. I mean, yes, he had a little something, got a little dent on him towards the end of his tenure in Frederick.
If you want to read about that, we will drop some links in our show notes. The takeaway is that he did something he probably shouldn't have done. No charges were filed. And he seems quite humble about the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I would just say judge him on his full body work. I mean, and we have seen him here. This is not like a stranger coming in here. We know what he's capable of. We know what he cares about.
I also think there's something to be said for coming into a job, like having made an error, and everybody knows it. Like it just like it adds an element of like a hometown thing. Like when you come back, you're always like just a little bit more of a schmuck, and that feels like a fun place to start.
Yeah, well, we know he's not perfect. Yeah, he's not Saint Jason, not by any stretch, but we know him and we know his full record, that included. It's fair to ask about it, but we know the full record. What's success going to look like for him? I mean, it would be interesting if we had survey data that was done right now to ask the community, what is your level of confidence in the police department? What have your experiences been like? Things like that, just something kind of simple so we'd have a baseline. I would expect that over the next 1, 2, and 3 years, Chief Lando is going to want to work very hard to recreate, shore up, and strengthen community police relations. I think that's going to be top of mind. Why do I think that? Because it's always top of mind with him. Number 2, he is going to be working to give his officers the kind of direction and mission-focused idea that they have been lacking. And I would look to see in 1, 2, and 3 years that the police department is not losing people at quite the same rate. That would be one thing. And that officers are feeling, somebody's here who cares about us. There's perhaps new officer wellness initiatives. Perhaps there's Chief Lando could get his officers a raise for the next. I mean, I don't know how it all works, but I'd like to think that would be very, very important. And then, as we spoke about before, the recruiting thing. I mean, that's just got to happen. They got to put more classes through with more people through the academy than they're losing as a baseline. And on that, he's going to need the cooperation of city council, because I just don't think you can pay a good chunk less than some of these other departments and keep retaining people at the rate that you are. You got to give them good training and show that there is going to be accountability also for officers who are not ready to do things the ways that Chief Lando wants it. That's another important test for him in the time ahead. So I'd look for, across all 4 of those dimensions, I'd look for progress, and I think there's ways to measure all of it.
Well, whatever's coming, David, I take great heart knowing that you're going to be following along and judging accordingly, judging fairly. Thank you so much, as always, for sharing your insights and wisdom with us.
My pleasure. It's great to be with you as always, Megan.
That is all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you want to support us, you can do that at membership.citycast.fm. We will be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. We'll talk to you soon.
There's so much to be done. I mean, your questions about where's the money going to come from? Yeah.